Three, two, one. Hello, yo. Welcome back to my channel. Yeah, tonight we're gonna be continuing our rating of Shōgun by James Clavell. Yeah, that was close. So yeah, let's get where is it? Where is it? Let's get ready for Chapter 2. The daimyo Kasagi Yabu, Lord of Izu, wants to know who you are, where you come from, how you got here, and what acts of piracy have you committed, Father Sebastian said. I kept telling you we're not pirates. The morning was clear and warm, and Blackthorn was kneeling in front of the platform in the village square, his head still aching from the blow. Keep calm and get your brain working, he told himself. You're on trial for your lives. You're the spokesman, and that's all there is to it. The Jesuit's hostile and the only interpreter available, and you'll have no way of knowing what he's saying, except you can be sure he'll not help you. Get your wits about you, boy, he could almost hear old Alvin Caradoc saying. When the storm's the worst and the sea the most dreadful, that's when you need your special wits. That's what keeps you alive and your ship alive, if you're the pilot. Get your wits about you and take the juice out of every day. However bad, the juice of today was bile, Blackthorn thought grimly. Why do I hear Alvin's voice so clearly? First, tell the daimyo that we're at war, that we're enemies, he said. Tell him England and the Netherlands are at war with Spain and Portugal. I caution you again to speak simply and not to twist the facts. The Netherlands, or Holland, Zeeland, the United Provinces, whatever you filthy Dutch rebels call it, is a small rebellious province of the Spanish Empire. You're the leader of traitors who are in a state of insurrection against their lawful king. England and war and the Netherlands have been separate. Blackthorn did not continue because the priest was no longer listening but interpreting. The daimyo was on the platform, short, squat, and dominating. He knelt comfortably, his heels tucked neatly under him, flanked by 4 lieutenants, one of whom was Kasagi Omi, his nephew and vassal. They all wore silk kimonos, and over them ornate surcoats with wide belts, nipping them at the waist in huge starched shoulders. In the inevitable swords, Muda knelt in the dirt of the square. He was the only villager present, and the only other onlookers were the 50 samurai who came with the daimyo. They sat in disciplined, silent rows. The rabble of the ship's crew were behind Blackthorn, and, like him, were on their knees, guards nearby. They had to carry the captain general with them when they were sent for, even though he was ailing badly. He had been allowed to lie down in the dirt, still in a semi-coma. Blackthorn had bowed with all of them when they had come in front of the daimyo, but this was not enough. Samurai had slapped all of them on their knees and pushed their heads into the dust in the manner of peasants. He had tried to resist and shouted to the priest to explain that it was not their custom, that he was the leader and an emissary of their country and should be treated as such. But the haft of his spear had sent him reeling. His men gathered themselves in an impulsive charge, but he shouted at them to stop and to kneel. Fortunately, they obeyed. The daimyo had uttered something guttural, and the priest interpreted this as a caution to him to tell the truth and tell it quickly. Blackthorn had asked for a chair, but the priest said the Japanese did not use chairs, and there was none in Japan. Blackthorn was concentrating on the priest as he spoke to the daimyo, seeking a clue, a way through this reef. There's arrogance and cruelty in the daimyo's face, he thought. I'll bet he's a real, the priest, Japanese fluent. Ah, see that? Irritation and impatience. Did the daimyo ask for another word? A clearer word? I think. So, why is the Jesuits wearing orange robes? Is the daimyo a Catholic? Look, the Jesuits very differential and sweating a lot. I'll bet the daimyo is not a Catholic. Be accurate! Perhaps he's not a Catholic. Either way, you'll get no quarter from him. How can you see it? How can you use the evil? How do you talk direct to him? How are you going to work the priest? How discredit him? What's the bait? Come on, think. You know enough about Jesuits. The daimyo says, hurry up and answer his questions. Yes, of course. I'm sorry. My name's John Blackthorne. I'm English, pilot major of the Netherlands fleet. Our home port's Amsterdam. Fleet? What fleet? You're lying. There's no fleet. Why is an Englishman pilot of a Dutch ship? All in good time? First, please translate what I said. What are you, the pilot of a Dutch privateer? Hurry up! Blackthorne decided to gamble. His voice abruptly hardened and it cut through the morning warmth. Geva? He first translated what I said. Spaniard. Now! The priest flushed. I'm Portuguese. I've told you before. Answer the question! I'm here to talk to the daimyo, not to you. Translate what I said, you motherless offal. Blackthorne saw the priest redden even more and now felt that this had not gone unnoticed by the daimyo. Be cautious, he warned himself. That yellow will carve you into pieces quicker than a school of sharks if you overreach yourself. Tell the Lord Daimyo. Blackthorne deliberately bowed low to the platform and felt the chill sweat beginning to purl as he committed himself irrevocably to his course of action. Father Sebastian knew that this training should make him impervious to the pirates' insults and the obvious plan to discredit him in front of the daimyo. But for the first time, it did not, and he felt lost. When Muda's messenger had brought news of the ship to his mission in the neighboring province, he had been rocked by the implications. It can't be Dutch or English, he had thought. There had never been a heretic ship in the Pacific except those of the arch-devil corsair Drake, and never one here in Asia. The routes were secret and guarded. At once he had prepared to leave, and had sent an urgent carrier pigeon message to his superior in Osaka, wishing that he could first have consulted with him, knowing that he was young, almost untried and new to Japan, barely 2 years here, not yet ordained, and not competent to deal with this emergency. He had rushed to Anjido, hoping and praying that the news was untrue. But the ship was Dutch and the pilot English, and all of his loathing for the satanic heresies of Luther, Calvin, Henry VIII, and the archfiend Elizabeth, his daughter, had overwhelmed him and still swamped his judgment. Priest, translate what the pirate said, he heard the daimyo say. O blessed Mother of God, help me to do what I will. Help me to be strong in front of the daimyo. Give me the gift of tongues, and let me convert him to the true faith. Father Sebastian gathered his wits and began to speak more confidently. Blackthorne listened carefully, trying to pick out the words and meanings. The father used England and Blackthorne and pointed out the ship, which lay nicely at anchor in the harbor. How did you get here? Father Sebastian said. By Magellan's Pass. This is one of 136 days from here. Tell the daimyo. You're lying! Magellan's Pass is secret. You came via Africa and India. You've tell the truth eventually. They used torture here. The pass was secret. A Portuguese sold us the rudder. One of your own people sold you out for a little Judas gold. You're all manure. Now all English warships and Dutch warships know the way through the Pacific. There's a fleet, 20 English ships of the line, 60 cannon warships attacking Manila right now. Your empire's finished. You're lying! Yes, Blackthorne thought, knowing it, there was no way to prove the lie except to go to Manila. That fleet will harry your sea lanes and stamp out your colonies. There's another Dutch fleet due here any week now. The Spanish-Portuguese pig is back in his pigsty, and your Jesuit general's penis is in his anus, where it belongs. He turned away and bowed low to the daimyo. God curse you and your filthy mouth! Anamona wa nani amoshite uro. The daimyo snapped impatiently. The priest spoke more quickly, harder, and said, Magellan and Manila. But Blackthorne thought that the daimyo and his lieutenants did not seem to understand too clearly. Yabu was wearing of this trial. He looked out into the harbor to the ship that had obsessed him ever since he had received Omi's secret message, and he wondered again if it was the gift from the gods that he hoped. "Have you inspected the cargo yet, Omi-san?" he had asked this morning as soon as he had arrived, much spattered and very weary. "No, Lord. I thought it best to seal up the ship until you came personally, but the holds are filled with crates and bales. I hope I did it correctly. Here are all their keys. I confiscated them." Good. Yabu had come from Yedo, Toranaga's capital city, more than 100 miles away, post-haste, furtively, and at great personal risk. And it was all vital that he returned as quickly. The journey had taken almost 2 days, over foul roads and spring-filled streams, partly on horseback and partly by palanquin. "I'll go to the ship at once." "You should see the strangers, Lord," Omi had said with a laugh. "They're incredible. Most of them have blue eyes, like Siamese cats, and golden hair. But the best news of all is that they are pirates." Omi had once told him about the priest and what the priest had related about these corsairs and what the pirate had said, and what had happened, and his excitement had tripled. Yabu had conquered his impatience to go aboard the ship and break the seals. Instead, he had bathed and changed and ordered the barbarians brought in front of him. "You, priest," he said, his voice sharp, hardly able to understand the priest's bad Japanese. "Why is he so angry with you?" "He's evil! Pirate! He worshipped devil!" Yabu leaned over to Omi, the man on his left. "Can you understand what he's saying, nephew? Is he lying? What do you think?" "I don't know, Lord. He knows what barbarians really believe. I imagine the priest thinks the pirate is a devil worshipper. Of course, that's all nonsense." Yobo turned back to the priest, detesting him. He wished that he could crucify him today and obliterate Christianity from his domain once and for all, but he could not. Though he and all other daimyos had total power in their own domains, they were still subject to the overriding authority of the Council of Regents, the military ruling junta to whom the Taiko had legally willed his power during his son's minority and subject to edicts the Taiko had issued in his lifetime, which were all still legally in force. One of these, promulgated years ago, dealt with the Portuguese barbarians and ordered that they were all protected persons and within reason. Their religion was to be tolerated and their priests allowed, within reason, to proselytize and convert. "You priest, what else did the pirate say? What was he saying to you? Hurry up, have you lost your tongue?" "Pirate says bad things. Bad? About more pirate warbodings, many." "What do you mean, warbodings?" "Sorry, Lord, I don't understand. Warbodings? Doesn't make sense." "Nah." Pirate says other ships' war are in Manila, in Philippines. Omi-san, did you understand what he was talking about?" "No, Lord, his accent's appalling. It's almost gibberish." "Is he saying that more pirate ships are east of Japan?" "You, priest, are these pirate ships off our coast? East, eh?" "Yes, Lord, but I think he's lying. He says at Manila." "I don't understand you. Where's Manila?" "East, many days' journey. If any pirate ships come here, we'll give them a pleasant welcome, wherever Manila is." "Please excuse me, I don't understand." "Never mind," Yabu said, his patience at an end. He had already decided that strangers were to die, and he relished the prospect. Obviously, these men did not come within the type of edict that specified Portuguese barbarians, and anyway, they were pirates. As long as he could remember, he hated barbarians, their stench of filthiness, and the disgusting eating habits, their stupid religion and arrogant, detestable manners. More than that, he was shamed, as was every daimyo, but their stranglehold over this lord of the gods. A state war had existed between China and Japan for centuries. China would allow no trade. Chinese silk cloth was vital to make the long, hot, humid Japanese summer bearable. For generations, only a minuscule amount of contraband cloth had slipped through the net and was available at huge cost in Japan. Then, 60-odd years ago, the barbarians had first arrived. The Chinese emperor in Peking gave them a tiny permanent base in Macau in southern China and agreed to trade silks for silver. Japan had silver in abundance. Soon trade was flourishing. Both countries prospered. The middlemen, the Portuguese, grew rich, and their priests, Jesuits mostly, soon became vital to the trade. Only the priests managed to learn to speak Chinese and Japanese, and therefore could act as negotiators and interpreters. As trade blossomed, the priests became more essential. Now the yearly trade was huge and touched the life of every samurai. So the priests had to be tolerated, and the spread of their religion tolerated, or the barbarians would sail away and trade would cease. By now there were a number of very important Christian daimyos and many hundreds of thousands of converts, most of whom were in the Kyushu, the southern island that was nearest to China and contained the Portuguese port of Nagasaki. Yes, Yabu thought, we must tolerate the priests and the Portuguese, but not these barbarians, the new ones, the unbelievable golden-haired, blue-eyed ones. His excitement filled him. Now, unless he could have satisfied his curiosity as to how well the barbarian would die when put in torment. And he had 11 men, 11 different tests to experiment with. He never questioned why the agony of others pleasured him. He only knew that it did, and therefore it was something to be sought and enjoyed. Yabu said, the ship, alien, non-Portuguese and pirate, is confiscated with all it contains. All pirates are sentenced to immediate. His mouth dropped open as he saw the pirate leader suddenly leap at the priest and rip the wooden crucifix from his belt, snapped it into pieces and hurled the pieces on the ground and shouted something very loud. The pirate immediately knelt and bowed low to him as the guards jumped forward, sword raised. Stop! Don't kill him. Yabu was astounded that anyone could have the impertinence to act with such lack of manners in front of him. These barbarians are beyond belief. Yes, Omi said, with his mind flooding with the questions that such an action implied. The priest was still kneeling, staring fixedly at the pieces of the cross. They watched as his hand reached out shakily and picked up the violated wood. He said something to the pirate, his voice low, almost gentle. His eyes closed, his steepled his fingers, and his lips began to move slowly. The pirate leader was looking up at them motionlessly, pale blue eyes unblinking, cat-like in front of the rabble crew. Yabu said, Omi-san, first I want to go on the ship, then we'll begin. His voice thickened as he contemplated the pleasure he had promised himself. I want to begin with that red-haired one on the end of the line, the small man. Omi leaned closer and lowered his excited voice. Please excuse me, but this has never happened before, sire. Not since the Portuguese barbarians came here. Isn't the crucifix their sacred symbol? Aren't they always deferential to their priests? Don't they always kneel to them openly, just like our Christians, having the priests absolute control over them? Come to your point. We all detest the Portuguese, sire, except the Christians among us, nay. Perhaps these barbarians are worth more to you alive than dead. How? Because they're unique. They're anti-Christian. Perhaps a wise man could find a way to use their hatred or irreligiousness to our advantage. They're your property to do as you wish, nay? Yes, and I want to in torment, Yabu thought. Yes, but you can enjoy that at any time. Listen to Omi. He's a good counselor. But is he to be trusted now? Does he have a secret reason for saying this? Think. Ikawajiki was Christian, he heard his nephew say, naming his hated enemy, one of the Ichido's kinsmen and allies, who sat on the western borders. Doesn't this filthy priest have his home there? Perhaps these barbarians could give you the key to unlock Ikawa's whole province. Perhaps Ichido's, perhaps even Lord Toranaga's. Omi added delicately. Yawa studied Omi's face, trying to reach what he was behind it. Then his eyes went to the ship. He had no doubt. Now that it had been sent by the gods, yes, but it was as a gift or a plague. He put away his own pleasure for the security of his clan. I agree, but first break these pirates, teach them manners, particularly him. Good sweet Jesus' death, Vink muttered. We should say a prayer, Van Eyck said. You just said one. Perhaps we'd better say another. Lord God in heaven, I could use a pint of brandy. They were crammed into a deep cellar, one of the many that the fishermen used to store sun-dried fish. The samurai had heard them across the square down a ladder, and now they were locked underground. The cellar was 5 paces long and 5 wide and 4 deep, with an earthen floor in the walls. The ceiling was made of planks with a foot of earth above and a single trapdoor set into it. Get off my foot, you god-cursed ape. Shut your face, sheet-picker. Peter soon said genially, Hey Vink, move up a little, you toothless old fart. You got more room than anyone. By God, I could use a cold beer. Move up. I can't, Peterson. We're tighter than a virgin jars here. It's the Captain General. He's got all the space. Give him a shove. Wake him up, Matsuko said. Hey, what's the matter? Leave me alone. What's going on? I'm sick. I've got to lie down. Where are we? Leave him alone. He's sick. Come on, Matsuko. Get up, for the love of God. Vink angrily pulled Matsuko up and shoved him against the wall. There was not room enough for them all to lie down, or even to sit comfortably at the same time. The Captain General, Paul Spielbergen, was lying full length under the trapdoor where there was the best air, his head propped on his bundled cloak. Blackthorn was leaning against the corner, staring up at the trapdoor. The crew had left him alone and stayed clear of him uneasily, as best they could, recognizing from a long experience his mood and the brooding, explosive violence that always lurked just below his quiet exterior. Matsuko lost his temper and smashed his fist into Vink's groin. Leave me alone or I'll kill you, Vink flew at him, but Blackthorn grabbed both of them and rammed their heads against the wall. Shut up, all of you, he said softly. They did as they were ordered. We'll split into watches. One watch sleeps, one sits, and one stands. Spielberg lies down until he's fit. At the corners, the latrine. He divided them up. When they had rearranged themselves, it was more bearable. We'll have to break out of here within a day or we'll be too weak, Blackthorn thought. When they bring the ladder back to give us food or water, it will have to be tonight or tomorrow night. Why did they put us here? We're no threat. We could help the daimyo. Will you understand? It was my only way to show him that the priests are a real enemy. Will he understand? The priest had. Perhaps God may forgive your sacrilege, but I won't. Father Sebastian had said very quietly. I will never rest until you and your evil are obliterated. The sweat are dribbling down his cheeks and chin. He wiped it away absently. Ears turned to the cellar as they would be when he was bored and sleeping or off watch and drifting. Just enough to try to hear the danger before it happened. We'll have to break out and take the ship. I wonder what Felicity's doing, and the children. Let's see. Tudor's 7 years old now, and Elizabeth is... We're 1 year and 11 months and 6 days from Amsterdam. I had 30 days provisioning it coming from Chatham to come here. Lastly, the 11 days that she was alive before the embarkation of Chatham. That's her age exactly. It falls well. All should be well. Felicity will be cooking, guarding, and cleaning and chattering as the kids grow up, as strong and fearless as their mother. It will be fine to be home again, to walk together along the shore and in the forest and glades in the beauty that is England. Over the years, he had trained himself to think about them as characters in a play, people that you loved and bled for, the play never ending. Otherwise, the hurt of being away would be too much. He could almost count his days at home in the 11 years of marriage. They're few, he thought, too few. It's a hard life for a woman, Felicity, he had said before, and she had said, any life is hard for a woman. She was 11 then and tall, and her hair was long and since her ears told him to beware. The men were sitting or leaning or trying to sleep. Vink and Peterson, good friends, were talking quietly. Van Eyck was staring into space with the others. Spielbergen was half awake, and Blackthorn thought that the man was stronger than he let everyone believe. There was a sudden silence as they heard the footsteps overhead. The footsteps stopped. Muted voices in a harsh, strange-sounding language. Blackthorn thought that he recognized the samurai's voice. Omi-san? Yes, that was his name, but he could not be certain. In a moment, the voices stopped and the footsteps went away. You think they'll feed us, pilot? Song said. Yes, I could use a drink. Cold beer, by God? Peterson said. Shut up. Vink said. You're enough to make a man sweat. Blackthorn was conscious of his soaking shirt and the stench. By the Lord God, I could use a bath, he thought, and abruptly he smiled, remembering. Muda and the others had carried him into the warm room that day and laid him on a stone bench, his limbs still numb and slow-moving. The three women, led by the old crone, had begun to undress him, and he had tried to stop them, but every time he moved, one of the men would stab a nerve and hold him powerless. And however much he raved and cursed, they continued to undress him until he was naked. It was not that he was ashamed of being naked in front of women. It was just that undressing was always done in private, and that was the custom. and he did not like being undressed by anyone, let alone these uncivilized natives. But to be undressed publicly like a helpless baby, and to be washed everywhere like a baby with warm, soapy-scented water while they chattered and smiled as he lay on his back was too much. Then he had become erect, and as much as he tried to stop it from happening, the worse it became. At least he thought so, but the woman did not. Their eyes became bigger, and he began to blush. Jesus, Lord God, the one and only. I can't be blushing. But he was, and this seemed to increase his size. And the old woman clapped her hands in wonder and said something, to which they all nodded and shook her head odd, and said something else, to which they nodded even more. Muda had said with enormous gravity, Captain-san, Mother-san, thank you. The best for life, now die happy. And he and they had all bowed as one. Then he, Blackthorn, had seen many funny it was, and he had begun to laugh. They were startled, and they were laughing too, and his laughter took his strength away, and the crone was a little sad, and said so, and this made him laugh more, and them also. Then they had laid him gently into the vast heat of the deep water, and soon he would bear it no longer, and they lay him gasping on the bench once more. The women had dried him, and then an old blind man had come. Blackthorn had never known massage. At first he tried to resist the probing fingers, but then their magic seduced him, and soon he was almost purring like a cat as their fingers found the nuts and unlocked the blood and elixir that lurked beneath the skin and muscle and no. Then he had been helped to bed, strangely weak, half in dream, and the girl was there. She was patient with him, and after sleeping when he had strength, he took her with care, and even though it had been so long, he had not asked her name, and in the morning when Muda, tense and frightened, had pulled him out of sleep, she was gone. Blackthorn sighed. Life is marvelous, he thought. In the cellar, Spielbergen was querulous again. Mexico was nursing his head and moaning, not from pain, but from fear. The boy Crook, near breaking, and Jan Roper said, "What's more to smile about, Pilot? Go to hell." "With respect, Pilot," Van Eyck said carefully, bringing the open what was foremost into their minds. "You were most unwise to attack the priest in front of the round yellow. There was general, though carefully expressed agreement. If you hadn't, I don't think we'd be in this filthy mess." Van Eyck did not go near Blackthorn. "All you got to do was put your head in dust when the Lord around, and they're as meek as lambs." He waited for a reply, but Blackthorn made none. Just turned back to the trapdoor. It was as though nothing had been said. Their unease increased. Paulus Spielbergen lifted himself on one elbow with difficulty. "What are you talking about, Bacchus?" Van Eyck went over to him and explained about the priest and the cross and what had happened and why they were here, his eyes hurting today more worse than ever. "Yes, that was dangerous," Pilot Major Spielbergen said. "Yes, I'd say quite wrong. Pass me some water. Now the Jesuits will give us no peace at all." "You should have broken his neck, Pilot. Jesuits will give us no peace anyway," Jan Roper said. "Their fist lies, and we're here in this stink hole as God's punishment." "That's nonsense, Roper," Spielbergen said. "We're here because it is God's punishment. We should have burned all the churches in Santa Magdalena, not just two. We should have cesspits of Satan." Spielbergen slapped weakly at a fly. "The Spanish troops were regrouping, and we were outnumbered 15-1. Give me some water." We sacked the town and got the plunder and rubbed their noses into the dust. "If we'd stayed, we would have been killed. For God's sake, give me some water, someone. We'd have all been killed if we hadn't retreated." "What does it matter if you're doing the work of God? We failed him." "Perhaps we're here to do God's work," Van Eyck said, placidly. For Roper was a good, though zealous man, a clever merchant and his partner's son. "Perhaps we can show the natives here the error of their Papist ways. Perhaps we could convert them to the true faith." "Quite right," Spielberg said. He still felt weak, but his strength was returning. I think you should have consulted Bacchus, Pilot Major. After all, he's chief merchant. He's very good at parleying with savages. Pass the water, I said. There isn't any Paulus. Vanek's gloom increased. They've given us no food or water. We haven't even got a pot to piss in. Well, ask for one. And some water? God in heaven, I'm thirsty. Ask for water, you? Me? Vink asked. Yes, you! Vink looked at Blackthorn, but Blackthorn just watched the trapdoor obliviously, so Vink stood under the opening and shouted, Hey, you up there! Give us God-cursed water! We want food and water! There was no answer. He shouted again. No answer? The others gradually took up the shouts, all except Blackthorn. Soon their panic and the nausea of their close confinement crept into their voices, and they were howling like wolves. The trapdoor opened. Omi looked down at them. Beside him was Mura and the priest. Water and food, by God! Let us out of here! Soon they were all screaming again. Omi motioned to Mura, who nodded and left. A moment later, Mura returned with another fisherman, carrying a large barrel between them. They emptied the contents, rotting fish, oval and seawater, onto the heads of the prisoners. The men in the cellar scattered and tried to escape, but all of them could not. Spielbergen was choking, almost drowned. Some of the men slipped and they were trampled on. Blackthorn had not moved from the corner. He had just stared up at Omi, hating him. Then Omi began talking. There was a cowed silence now, broken only by coughing and Spielbergen's retching. When Omi had finished, the priest nervously came to the opening. These are Kasagi Omi's orders. You will begin to act like decent human beings. You will make no more noise. If you do, next time 5 barrels be poured into the cellar. Then 10, then 20. You will be given food and no water twice a day. When you have learned to behave, you will be allowed up into the world of men. Lord Yabu has graciously spared all your lives, providing you serve him loyally, all except one. One of you is to die at dusk. You want to choose who will it be? But you, he pointed at Blackthorn, you are not to be the one chosen. All at ease. The priest took a deep breath, half bowed to the samurai and stepped back. Omi peered down into the pit. He could see Blackthorn's eyes and he felt the hatred. It will take much to break the man's spirit, he thought. No matter, there's time enough. The trapdoor slammed into place.